Recently, you might have heard of the term inflation. Inflation is high. Recession is looming. Stocks have crashed. Crypto markets have tanked. Hearing this, you might have wondered, what is inflation? What is this recession? Why is the economy tanking? And guess what? A lot of people have these same questions. I had the same questions as well, and therefore I started digging about what these things actually mean. Welcome to my channel FinTech Decode, where we talk about finance, good investing habits, technology, and productivity. Today, we are going to decode inflation. The first thing I want to talk about is what is inflation. Sam Ewing had a great definition of inflation. It's when you pay $15 for a $10 haircut that used to cost $5 when you had hair. A simple example is a cup of coffee that used to cost 22 cents in 1950 today costs $5. That's clearly an increase in the price of a good, and that's technically what inflation is. Let me explain the crux of inflation with a simple example. Let's assume the world is made up of only two people, person A and person B. So person A here earns $100 a month. They love spending money. They love eating fruits, being healthy, and their favorite fruit is an apple. Let's come down to person B. Person B is a farmer. They grow just one apple every month. As soon as the month ends, they take this apple that's ripe and go to the market. Here they meet with person A. Person A now sees around, there's no one. There's just this farmer with one apple, and person A is willing to pay $10 for this apple. The farmer, who is person B, is pretty happy because he spent $1 to grow the apple and he is happy with the $9 profit. So he sells this apple. Now things are great. Everyone's happy. Person A has $90 more to spend. Person B, the farmer, has made tons of profit and now he has money to grow more apples. Now the same farmer goes to the market with this one ripe apple at the end of the month. The farmer now sees 100 people in front of him and says, this apple which costed $10, I want all of you guys to bid on it. The starting price is $10. Now there is bidding, and at the end a person who bids $40 for this $10 apple wins and takes home the apple. What did you notice? There is a key learning in this example. The apple that costed $1 to produce and $10 to sell today sold for $40. This is increase in the price of goods and services, and that's what inflation is. This is exactly what happened during COVID times. The Fed printed tons of money and injected it into the economy. People had a lot more money in their hand and were willing to buy more goods and services. This really overwhelmed the production lines because the production capacity did not change and the demand increased exponentially, which caused increase in prices. Now that we have understood the crux of how inflation actually takes place, let's understand the three types of inflation. The first kind is a cost push inflation. Here, the cost of producing the goods and services increases, and that cost is passed on to the consumer, and therefore the cost to produce has increased, and that's a cost push inflation. The second is demand pull inflation. Here, the demand is far greater than the supply, and therefore the cost of the product increases. The third kind of inflation is wage spiral. Here, the cost of producing the goods increases. What that means is companies pass on this increase in cost to the consumer. What this means is we need to pay more for the same product, and the cost of living now has shot up. Since cost of living has shot up, it means that we need more money to sustain our life, and therefore our employers need to pay us more, and that's how the spiral keeps continuing. Now let's talk about how to measure inflation. Inflation is measured in various ways. The most common one that you might have heard of is CPI. CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. It is a measure of a basket of goods and services. The most common items in the basket for measuring CPI are food and beverage, housing, apparel, transportation, real estate, education. Finally, let's answer the question whether inflation is good or bad. Anything in moderation is typically good, and it holds true for even inflation. And inflation of 1 to 2% is generally considered healthy. This is because the cost of producing the goods is increasing by 1 to 2%, which is passed down to the consumers. Consumers, on the other hand, are able to afford and digest this increase in cost, and and the employers who employ these consumers are willing to increase their salary by 1 to 2% a year, and thus inflation is healthy when controlled. In today's world, inflation is super high. CPI is much more than 10%, and that's pretty bad because the cost of living is increasing at a rapid rate and people aren't earning that much money to afford these things, and therefore the Fed comes in and tries to control inflation by increasing the interest rates. Increase in Fed's interest rate is a topic for another time. And finally, I want to talk about how you can protect yourself against inflation. The main way to protect against inflation is investment, investment, and investment. I'm going to make a video about what are the various kinds of investment that will protect you against rise in prices as well as recession to some extent. And if you want to learn more about finance, good investing habits, and technology, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, if you liked the content of this video, please hit the like button.